If the church were to make New Year's resolutions, what would we seek to improve? I'm talking here with a group of pastors, and we're having a lively conversation. And Jason, I want to pick up back on something you were about to make a comment just before we had to go to break.
Right. Well, it's so scary to hand something to somebody else and to give them the reins. And what I try to caution myself to do is that I want to not be formula-based. I want to be principle-based.
Right.
And so when I hand the reins to somebody else, I don't just want to tell them what I've been doing, but maybe I still believe in all the principles of what I've been doing. And when I hand that to them, then I say, now you do it and just accomplish the principles. And I might be scared at how they accomplish those principles because it might be different than what I'm used to. But to me, it's so crucial to give them that genuine thing that you're trying to achieve, not just the process by which you do it.
Right, right. Because that process could change. As long as the mission is the same, the principles are the same, the process could change. In fact, Diego, you pick up on this in part of the article that you wrote. You said the issue is never the message, but the approach. Expound on that. That's kind of tagging along with what Jason just said here.
It does really follow that. Once I read that the opposite of love, it's not hatred, but it's indifference. And how does he apply to us? I've seen so many evangelistic emphasis on Daniel the Beast, 666, and the Antichrist, and all those things. But what does it really mean? What does it mean? What does he really speak to a person who is really hurting from inside out? A woman who is being abused by her husband, a young boy who thinks has a girl inside his body. Sometimes we think the Adventism is just a part of select people. And thank God we're becoming a lot more open. We're embracing people, accepting them exactly the way they are. And we do not change anybody. That's Christ, the Holy Spirit, who changes from inside out. Jesus called Matthew when he was still in the tax booth collecting money. He was still stealing money. Paul was on the way to Damascus. He was still a murderer to kill Christians when God calls them. When we understand that when the messages come just as you are, and Jesus will change us, we'll become more relevant. We've got to analyze our evangelism and really speak the language that people need to listen to.
This goes to the issue of predicting what someone will look like once they've accepted Jesus. Right? I think we like to do that sometimes. We want to predict what exactly. So how can we fulfill this approach, and yet at the same time within our church, we have to admit that, when I read my baptismal vows, there were 13 vows that were read to me, and yes, I do. I had to say yes to those vows. So how can we still involve people and help people come to Jesus Christ at the same time making sure that they're fully aware of what the church stands for? Or do they need to be fully aware?
I'd say absolutely. I mean, but you have to get to know them to find out how to best approach them. You understand? So, and I would think of an example when I preach to kids. I tell them you got to be like a Cocoa Puff. That's how I explain evangelism, because a Cocoa Puff makes all the milk turn chocolate.
Right.
And that's how we got to be. We got to make the whole world, tell them about this Christ that we know about.
Right.
Just getting to know what they like, what they're into.
But can you baptize a person before they have totally worked out all of their sin issues?
I truly believe that we can. The Bible does not say that baptism is actually membership to a church. When the person understands that they want to accept Christ, that's just the beginning. That's not the end of the road. And then if we understand that the baptism is just the beginning, yes, they might be struggling still with cigarettes or drugs, whatever, but they're willing to change. They finally realize that they have to change. Other people have not yet, but when they do, they understand they at least have the willingness to change.
Yeah, it's so funny because we have certain words that we tagline that people need to be doing well before they get baptized.
Right.
We want them to stop smoking. We want them to stop drinking. But then why don't we hold them accountable to pride before we baptize
Gossip.
them? There's the gamut of things. It would be impossible to be baptized.
Right.
Well, and that's why I think we get confused as pastors, as church leaders. We sometimes think that baptism is salvation. Christ decides, and God decides who's going to be saved. We can say, yes, you can be baptized. If there's that desire to follow Christ and say, I will give everything to God, put them in the water and let God walk with them.
Yes.
And so we can't say that, well, if I baptize you, God's going to have to let you into heaven. No, that's not how it works. We can't say that. We need to say, do you want to serve God? When you're convicted of whatever the issue is,
Yeah.
when you're convicted of that, will you stop?
Right.
If that person says yes, then put them in the water, and let God decide who's saved and who's not.
And
Go ahead, Deanna.
the other point
Yes.
is that people have different levels of sins and struggles. A person here might be have many years, might never even become a vegetarian, but it's not a big issue. Sometimes we want to make people to be right at that level, a pattern of like grown-up Christians we would call, but people do have different levels, how they struggle with their sins and how they overcome those things.
We've got about 60 seconds left in this segment. What support can we put around people to help them as they are baptized? They're not gonna, none of us were perfect when we were baptized. That's the reality of it. So
Still not.
Still not, right?
Still not.
Still not. Bless the Lord. Amen. What support can we put around individuals to help them grow in their spiritual walk? And I'm just gonna have to take one comment. Who's up?
Well, as much
All
as
right,
we
Jason,
want,
yeah.
as much as we want to integrate people in what we do, I think our best way to minister to others is actually to integrate ourselves into what they do. Because our influence becomes a true reality in their life when they see that we care about what's going on with them.
Awesome comment. We're going to pick up this conversation. We're going to keep going here. We're going to have to take a quick break, but we're going to come right back with more on how we can make New Year's resolutions for the church in just a moment.